Welcome to your Daily Detroit for Monday, February 3rd, 2025. I'm Jer Stays. You know, we had the concepts of a plan for a show and then recorded it last night and then ditched those plans again as the news around tariffs and their impact on Michigan is fast moving. As I record this introduction around noon on Monday, 25% tariffs with Mexico announced over the weekend and due to go into effect Tuesday have been paused for a month. Meanwhile, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is meeting with President Trump at 3 p.m. Monday. Tariffs with Canada, our closest ally and tight trading partner, would hit Michigan very hard, including the auto industry, which has had close cooperation for decades. Michigan's GDP is more than a quarter dependent on trade with these two countries, more than any other state in the union. I will keep an eye on this. I have content planned ahead. I do not want to live in the world of doom scrolling. We are going to live in the era of curiosity, but also awareness and action about how this could actually impact us on the ground. For now, we're going to talk with Fletcher Sharpe. He will join me. We're going to get into the real possibility that the WNBA will return to Detroit, his thoughts on the new offensive and defensive coordinators for the Lions, and more. Local stars and heavy hitters are teaming up to bring the WNBA back to the Motor City. A powerhouse group of investors includes Sheila Fordham, Tom Gores, General Motors CEO Mary Barra, Jared Goff, Grant Hill, Chris Webber, Fletcher, who is at this point, who isn't in the bid? Like, are you secretly in the WNBA bid?
I mean, I'd have like $6 if they really want that. I mean, $6 is nothing, but it'll get me like a 0.00000% of owning a team. I'd be okay with that. That's fine. Even if it means I have to like sell popcorn for home games. And the trademark for the Detroit Shock ran out recently. So like we see that it was bought by somebody. Looking up, like it looks like they really want to bring the Shock back, which I personally love. And I hope that if the Shock are to come back, the Dallas Wings, who currently hold the Shock's history, will let us have that history back, because it would be nice, just, you know, kind of like when Seattle Supersonics became the Oklahoma City Thunder and moved down to Oklahoma City. Seattle was mentioning about getting a team back, and OKC was like, yeah, we'll give you back your history. Like it's yours. And like, that's a nice thing to see do. You also see teams sometimes like the Baltimore Colts become the Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore Ravens, and they were like, we're not giving you your history. Don't care. Doesn't matter. And the Ravens, of course, are now better than the Colts. So, yeah. But to see a winning franchise like the Shock come back is so heartwarming, especially because of the way they left. It was really kind of heartbreaking. I have so many fond memories of going to the Palace at Auburn Hills to go to Shock games. And while they weren't necessarily full all the time because people were just kind of giving away tickets at that moment, the WNBA wasn't necessarily new, but it was newer. Having it at LCA can only be great things. It's I won't say the epicenter of the area, but like more people are more likely to come downtown than they are to come to Auburn Hills. And if you can assemble a team that's half as good as a team that contains stars like Dana Nolan, Cheryl Ford, Katie Smith, Plannette Pearson, they'll be fine. And as we saw with the Pistons, people supported them a little bit the past few years when they really weren't good. They were mad about it, but they supported. Now the Pistons are good with a superstar in Cade Cunningham leading the team, and people are super behind it. So if they can put together a team that's decent and gets people to really want to be there when the WNBA is going through their revival and kind of people are really picking back up into it, it's a great catalyst. I very much am happy for this.
Couple of key details. There would be a new practice facility, headquarters, and youth sports complex. And on the business side, I wanted to share this and get your thoughts on it, Fletcher, if this tracks. There is not a price tag that's been put out, but Toronto's team, and correct me, Fletcher, last year, the year before, what's it, the Tempo? What? Am I right?
Toronto Tempo will start in the WNBA in 2026.
Okay.
Their colors are Bordeaux, which fancy way of saying blue, black, and white.
Okay. Well, that team cost $115 million, according to press reports. $50 million was an expansion fee. For a group of owners like this, that's pocket change.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of it will be funded probably by Gores and Sheila Fordham, maybe even Mary Barra. I don't think they're going to make Jared Goff and Grant Hill and Chris Webber carry the lion's share of that, which, I don't know, given the contract Jared signed, he might be able to. But it's whatever the fee is. If it is what Toronto's is, it might be a little bit more, as expansion fees tend to go up year by year when new teams. I'm sure it'll be fine. If it's to make sure they get a team here, they will definitely do that. And again, to have the Shock be downtown, have the Shock back period would be great. But to have the Shock be downtown at LCA, I might have to buy some season tickets.
You know, local media requires local support to survive. I want to thank Brenda for joining us and Alex for upping their contributions to Daily Detroit at patreon.com/Daily Detroit. You'll get early access to some of our conversations, a new off the record, off the rails podcast, as well as access to our member only Discord chat where we're really building community together. So join us, patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Fletcher, I got to interrupt us with a little bit of breaking news happening as we are recording the show. Jack Flaherty is coming back to the Tigers. The right-hander has a 2-year, $35 million contract. It has an opt-out after the first season, according to ESPN. Fletcher Sharpe, your first reaction. I'm just hearing this news right now. Literally, my phone was buzzing. Our Discord was jumping. What do you think?
I guess it shows the Tigers kind of won the trade. I mean, yeah, he went to LA and got a championship with the Dodgers, which good for him. But he's coming back, which means they get him back. They also get Trey Sweeney, who they got in the trade back. Seems like a win for the Tigers. When he was pitching with Detroit before he got traded away, he was pitching really well. He went 7-5, ERA just under 3, 133 strikeouts. Quality pitcher. Is he the number one guy? No. But is he someone who can have in your rotation to show you're being serious? For sure. Hopefully they get the Tigers Jack Flaherty back and not the Dodgers Jack Flaherty back, because that guy sucked. Champion for sure, but that guy was not good. But if he can recapture what he had in the first half of the season, I think the Tigers will be back to being contending again.
Okay, finally, Fletcher, we haven't had a chance to check up with each other on this. Motor City Dan Campbell, MCDC, has a new OC in DC in Kelvin Shepard on the defense and John Morton on the offense. What are your thoughts? I want to be very positive. I figured that both Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson would be gone because when the job opens up, you got to take the job, and people need coaches. I don't know how well they're going to do, but you take the job because it's the money and you just got to do it. So my biggest concern is, will the Lions be able to at least stand pat and or make progress?
Part of the evolution of Alex Anzalone as a player has been his own will to get better as a player. Same with Malcolm Rodriguez and even Jack Campbell in his 2 years, and like a lot of the linebackers. But part of the evolution has been coaching, and the one mainly responsible for that is Kelvin Shepard, who was the linebacker coach and kind of, I won't say like the junior assistant for a defensive coordinator, but kind of there. And linebackers are some of the most important people on the field. Like, they are, whenever you have a captain on the defense, the one who rallies the calls in, how the quarterback has a helmet that has a radio in it, the linebacker, typically the middle one, is the one who has it on the defense. So if you're in charge of the linebackers, essentially you are in charge of the most important unit on the defense. So naturally it seems to make sense to elevate him. Before he left, Aaron Glenn loved Kelvin Shepard. He was like, this guy, you should be getting calls about being a coordinator soon. Unfortunately, it's, when Aaron Glenn leaves for New York, I think Kelvin Shepard is a pretty good fit for this role. Shepard's philosophy tends to be the same as Aaron Glenn's, which also was the same as Dan Campbell's, which is line up, play straightforward, play tough, play to the whistle, contain the best you can, go from there, which is easier to do when they had a healthy defense. You saw at the end that they did not, and it kind of changed things. The one thing I will say, which would give me some pause, which obviously you have the same for any first-time coordinator or coach, managing one position group is hard, but managing the entire defense is a little bit harder. It kind of splits you from your focus. You can hyper-focus in one position and go from there. Now he's responsible for more than just the linebackers. I think if Dan Campbell thinks he can do it, I think if Aaron Glenn thought he could do it, I think Kelvin should be fine. I think the more noticeable difference for the common fan will be on the offensive side, as the Lions have hired John Morton from the Denver Broncos to replace the high-powered Ben Johnson offense, which they will definitely see 2 times a year with the Chicago Bears. And this one makes me scratch my head a little bit. Yes, John Morton has some connection. He was with the Saints when Dan Campbell's with the Saints. That's great. With the Jets, the 1 year he's with the Jets, they average about 19 points, which isn't really on him. The Jets are bad, historically bad. Doesn't really matter who's there. They're just kind of bad. Will be noted, Josh McCown was a quarterback for them at the time. Had a career best, throwing for a hair under 3,000 yards and 18 touchdowns and 14 starts. So if you can make Josh McCown look good, it should bode really well, because Jared Goff, even on his worst day, was better than Josh McCown at his best. I don't think the offense is going to be as tricky as we've seen the last year. I think it's going to be a bit more straightforward. I think there will still be some packages in there for specific players, packages for Jameer, packages for Jameson, packages to get Amon-Ra the ball in some open space. I don't think, like I said, it's not going to be as tricky as a Ben Johnson offense that's gone now. I think it'll be a bit more straightforward. I think you'll know what to expect. Some people might miss the fireworks, but they also will be happy not to see Jameson Williams on a reverse pass with the season on the line. Yeah, I think it's a solid hire. I'm a bit higher on the defensive side more than I am on the offensive. But the thing that gets lost in a lot of conversations about coaches, no matter how great your scheme is, if your players are really bad, it does not matter. You could be the savant, and if you have, 7-year-olds going up against grown men, obviously your schemes are not going to work. On the flip side, if you have terrible schemes but elite players, they will compensate for you. I don't think John Morton is terrible, but I think whatever schemes he has players who've shown that they can lead the entire league in offensive statistics. He has an explosive running back. He has a competent quarterback. He has a receiving core that can catch the ball. He has an offensive line, for the most part, that is coming back put together. I think he'll be fine. I won't say I expect the Lions to be number 1 offense next year, but top 6, top 7. I think that's an acceptable role for an offense.
I'll end here. Looking back, what is the pivot point for you? The thing where the Lions need to change it, or something when it comes to losing and not going as far as I think a lot of people thought they would, and then getting into the playoffs and realizing this maybe wasn't the team that we thought it was?
I have 3 specific points. The first one for the season, when Aiden Hutchinson got hurt. Yes, it was something they kind of overcame to a degree, but it drastically changed their defense. Before he got hurt, he was the shoo-in for defensive MVP. He was wrecking defenses, 7 sacks. For a majority of the season, even after he was hurt, he still led the team in sacks, which shows how little pressure the Lions got defensively. The second point was when Carlton Davis got hurt, because it kind of shifted the defensive priorities there. It meant the guy you were grooming to be your nickelback and Amik Robertson got a chance to play outside, and it was great. But it also took away a competent cornerback and put a less competent one, who probably won't be on the team next year, in the spotlight. And then the biggest one was the beginning of the Commanders game, where if you replayed it, I'm sorry you saw it, where Amik Robertson broke his femur, which is hard to do. It's a very hard bone. But that shifted the game plan entirely, because Amik was playing great, and it took that less than stellar cornerback, who was your nickel cornerback, who then became one of your starting outside cornerbacks and proceeded to get roasted for most of that game. The Lions already were going to struggle with a mobile quarterback, having their defense be set up the way that it was. But having a mobile quarterback with a cornerback who literally might or might not be better than a folding chair out there definitely made things a lot harder. And while they kept in the game as much as they could, you really can't overcome some of the stuff. And I'm not trying to sit there and say, oh, it's woe is them. No, they're professional athletes. They've been conditioned for this. Heck, some of them went to the Pro Bowl and like had a nice time. Would they have liked to be able to skip the Pro Bowl to go play in the Super Bowl? For sure. But the season's over. Heartbreak is over for some. Next season's coming around. And if they continue the way they're continuing and take the proper steps forward, I think they'll be fine.
All right, Fletcher Sharpe, so good to talk to you. Saint FDW on all the social media. Appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
With that, I am Jer Stays. Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Feedback, as always, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Until next time, remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.